Stocks on Wall Street rebound to end the session higher following a tech-fueled recovery. Dow gains 185 points while Nasdaq added nearly 140 points at close. Asia-Pacific markets open largely higher, tracking the gains from Wall Street. GIFT Nifty, however, is indicating a lower start to a muted start for the Indian market. Crude prices trade lower as traders monitor geopolitical developments in Venezuela and Ukraine and their potential impact on oil supply. Gold falls on profit booking. And its IPO galore on in the primary market. E-commerce platform Meesho's rupees 5,421 crore IPO opens today, closes on the 5th of December. Price band set at 105 to 110 rupees a share. Also, the opening of subscription of Equus at rupees 921 crore, which is a 921 crore IPO, and Vidya Wires at a 300 crore rupees IPO opening today. RBI's three-day monetary policy meeting begins today. The decision to be announced on the 5th of December. CNBC TV 18 poll shows 60% expect a 25 basis point rate cut this time. Hello, good morning. You've tuned into CNBC TV 18. You're watching Power Breakfast with me, Vinny Motiwala. Last few days haven't been that exciting for the markets. Today, what are we watching out for? Let's first start with the Asian markets. Now, Asian markets have opened up a slight bit on the positive side. Taiwan index is trading with gains of 0.6%, but the Hang Seng is trading with cuts of almost 0.4 to 0.5%. Other than that, ASX 200, that's the Australian index, that's managing to hold on to some bit of a gain there. 0.3% of gain for the ASX 200. Nikkei managing to hold on to gains of 0.8%. Shanghai, on the flip side, is not managing to hold on to gains. So, slight bit of a mixed opening is what we're seeing coming in for the Asian markets. But let's look at the Nifty implied open. What's the indication coming in here? We've seen three consecutive trading sessions fall coming in for the Nifty 50. Today seems like a muted start again is what we're watching out for. As of now, an 11-point decline is what the Nifty implied open is indicating. So, we'll see where that's going to be headed, whether we see a bit of a recovery today in the markets or maybe a muted day again for the Nifty 50 and the Indian markets is something that we should watch out for. But a lot that's happened on the global market front. How is all that going to be impacting our Indian markets? We have a team of research as always here to set you up for trade, tell you which are the important stocks to watch out for, what's going to be happening in the world of F&O as well. First up, let's go across to Hormaz, who's here to tell us the important market cues that we need to be keeping an eye out on today. Good morning, Hormaz.
Good morning, Vinny. And it's promising to be a dull start as of now, but 3 days of losses now for the Nifty, and we're already off 300 points from those record high levels. So the Nifty Bank, it's a little worse. So almost over 800 points now off those record high levels, and everything that could possibly have gone wrong for the bulls yesterday happened. So we had the expiry related volatility, the index heavyweights that were down with ICICI, HDFC, Reliance, all of them contributing to the Nifty downside in yesterday's session. The rupee, which has been the major factor behind the fall in the last two trading sessions, that tested levels of 90. That remains a key monitorable today as well. And of course, the broader markets, which were fairly okay all through the trading session, but then they succumbed to the selling pressure as well. And although the indices are flat in absolute terms, this advanced decline presents the actual picture of the pain in the broader markets. Now, you levels to watch out for, we briefly slipped below the 26,000 mark yesterday. So that remains the first important level on the downside. The analysts who we spoke to believe that if 26,000 goes, it opens a 150 to 200 point gap on the downside, which opens up 25,850, and that is the last week low, 25,842 to 25,847. That's the important level to watch on the downside if 26,000 goes. On the upside, of course, with 26,100, 26,150, which was a support, that becomes the first important hurdle on the upside now, and then we take it 50 points at a time. For the Nifty Bank, 59,500 gone yesterday, so now comes down to 59,000, and that goes, then that will be important to watch out for. You watch out in today's session if there is any further fall in HDFC and ICICI as the street begins to price in the lower weightage for them in the index. Any further depreciation in the rupee, because analysts that we spoke to are projecting ranges of anywhere between 90.5 to even 92 on the downside, so keep an eye out there as well. 3 IPOs, including Meesho, they open for subscription today, so that will be a key monitorable as well. And watch out for PSU banks today after the FinMin clarification on the FDI limit. So as of now, it promises to be it's a subdued start is what the GIFT Nifty is indicating, but the bulls would be hoping that the trend this time goes in their favor.
Absolutely hoping for the trend to be in their favor. That's the word maybe that would come in from the bulls by the end of the trading session. That's what we'll be keeping an eye out on. But important stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Upasana is here to give us that list. Good morning, Upasana.
Good morning, Winnie. First up, let me start with Sun Pharma. Company's unit has approved proposal of investment of 3,000 crores for setting up a greenfield formulation manufacturing facility in Madhya Pradesh. Next up is Canara Bank. It raises funds worth 3,500 crore via debentures, which includes a green shoe option of 2,500 crore. Seat also in focus as the board meeting is scheduled on 5th of December to explore proposal for issuance of NCD on private placement basis. IRFC is the next one as it signs pact with Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation to raise $300 million external commercial borrowing loan. Next up is India Cements. The company is armed to sell entire equity in PD Atcoal Energindo, which is an Indonesian company, for nearly about 5.4 crores. Hindustan Copper also in focus as it executes MOU with NTPC Mining to collaborate on copper and critical mineral projects. Quality Power is also in focus on the back of the order win. The company receives order worth 14 crores for supply of coil products. Next up is Cohance Life Sciences. Board has approved fund infusion by way of compulsory convertible preferred stock of NJ Bio Inc. USA, a subsidiary of the company, up to USD $10 million. So all in all, we'll be watching out for all these stocks in today's trading session.
Okay, Upasana, thank you so much for that list there. But let's move on to the final update today for the trade setup, and that is going to be on the FNO front. Sudarshan, what are we keeping an eye out on? What should we watch out for in terms of individual names in the FNO world as well?
So yesterday it was weekly expiry for Nifty, and we saw that market has fallen for third straight day. So the question would be, will this would be a fourth day that will fall? Well, I won't be surprised if there is any recovery at the lower levels, because last hour, just ahead of the expiry, we saw big uptick in the market, at least 40 to 50 points from the lower level. At one point, Nifty had slipped below 26,000, but at the end, it closed above that. So 25,900 to 26,000 would be very important range for Nifty to protect. As far as flows are concerned, yesterday we have seen that FI is selling the index futures of almost 2,500 crore. Also, they have added short positions more, and also they have reduced long positions. So in the longs, they have reduced positions by almost 3,100 contracts. On the short side, they have added positions of more than 9,600 contracts. And now their longs exposure has reduced to 16% from the earlier level of 18 to 9%. On the short side, the exposure is around 84%. If you take a look at the options data on the call side, 26,100 and 26,300 have seen maximum increase in the open interest, but premium for both these options has seen a fall. On a similar line, even on the put side for 26,000 and 25,900 put options, premium too has fallen. Now support for Nifty 25,900, resistance remains around record high of 26,300. For Nifty Bank, support would be 58,800, that is 20-day moving average, and resistance would be around 59,900, that is also the record high. So the stock that will be in the focus in the band is Saman Capital. Apart from them, keep an eye on Asian Paints and SBI Card. These two stocks have been seeing fresh longs. On the fresh short side, keep an eye on from PSU Bank's back Indian Bank. After a long time, this stock has been seeing fresh shorts. Also, from the mutual fund space, CAMS and HDFC AMC have been seeing fresh shorts.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Sudarshan, for the update in the world of FNO. But let's move on and talk about Meesho, because their IPO of around 5,421 crores opens for subscription today, with the price band for the offer set at 105 to 111 rupees per equity share. Now, ahead of the issue opening, the company last evening has raised 2,439 crore rupees from 60 anchor investors, including global funds like GIC, Fidelity, BlackRock, and also tech investor Dragnea. SBI Mutual Fund among the mutual fund side, Access Mutual Fund, Birla Mutual Fund are some of the anchor investors as well that came in from the top mutual fund anchor book side of Meesho. Now, we also spoke to the top management of the company earlier to understand their valuations, growth prospects, and a lot more. Listen in to some of the excerpts of that conversation.
We have been a private company. Now when we are turning public, I think the foremost objective that, let's say, with it, Sanjeev, the board had was that how do we get the most high quality long-term shareholders into the mix, be it domestic investors, foreign investors, sovereign wealth funds, etc. And at what value are they, attracted to the offering? And that's been the defining function. So when our bankers kind of presented to our board saying at this valuation level, most people are comfortable, and then the board kind of took that on as advice and agreed on this valuation. So we believe it's an attractive one, and we'll see it play out.
I think in terms of profitability, the most important metric that we optimize for is free cash flow. Like if you look at any company that's actually valued at the net present values of the free cash flow it generates over the long term. So instead of any other operating profit metric, the most important thing for us is free cash flow. If you look at the last 2 years, we've been free cash flow positive.
Right.
And I think that will continue to be a focus area even going forward. We are actually, and I would say we've been a very, very customer-focused company from the beginning. And we believe it takes a lot of effort to earn the trust of your customers. And anything which basically goes against some of those principles, we'll not do.
Okay, on that note, we're actually going to slip into a very short break. We'll get you updates from the White House in our next segment after the break. That's the Trump Watch segment. Stay tuned in. Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now let's get the update on what happened on Wall Street, because Wall Street rebounded to end Tuesday's trading session higher as tech stocks started seeing a recovery. The Bitcoin bounced back as well, above the $90,000 mark. We have CNBC's Julia Boosteen, who's here to give us a wrap on what happened on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were up across the major indexes in Tuesday trading, boosted by a surge in tech names. The Dow gained 185 points, the S&P 500 added 17, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq was up 138 points. Billionaire Michael Dell and his wife Susan announced Tuesday that they have committed to donating $6.25 billion to fund investment accounts for 25 million American children. That works out to $250 per child. According to the nonprofit partnering with the Dells, it's the largest ever donation devoted to kids. The money will go hand in hand with a new administration program dubbed Trump Accounts that allows parents to open investment accounts for children under age 18. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins on Tuesday threatened to cut off federal funding next week to states run by Democrats over their alleged refusal to share personal information from SNAP program data with the Trump administration. Rollins says it will apply to 22 states, including New York and California, and that it's necessary to root out fraud and abuse. Democratic state officials have argued the demand is unlawful and part of an administration effort to collect personal data for other purposes, including immigration. The SNAP program provides food benefits to more than 40 million Americans. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Thank you so much for that, Julia. But let's move on, and all eyes are on who the next Fed chair would be, even as Federal Reserve's final rate decision for this year takes place next week. On that note, listen into Mohammad Al-Arian of Alliance giving his view on the elements of potential candidates should focus on and what his outlook for the Fed is.
One is, do we continue making progress on AI, life sciences, and robotics? Two, do we focus not just on who's working on AI, but who's working with AI, meaning on adoption? That's going to be clear. We need an adoption policy. Otherwise, we don't get the productivity gains. And third is the mindset of companies. You have a few companies like Accenture that are thinking of AI as labor enhancing. The probability of a December cut, the implied probability of a cut on December 10th is about 92%. Look for January and the next two, it's around 30%. So the market thinks you'll get the cut. They think it's going to be what they call a hawkish cut. And the Fed is more likely to be paralyzed until a new chair comes in.
Okay, now let's move on to our special segment, Trump Watch, and getting into those latest developments, starting with US President Donald Trump, who has announced plans to reveal his choice for Federal Reserve Chairperson in early 2026. He hinted National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett as a potential candidate, calling him a respected person and signaling that Hassett could be in the running. Listen in.
I want to thank you all for being here. It's a great group. And I guess a potential Fed chair is here, too. I don't know. Are we allowed to say that? Potential. He's a respected person, that I can tell you. Thank you, Kevin.
Now, moving on, shares of American Bitcoin Corp plunged in Tuesday's trading session after the locked-up shares of the company's co-founded by US President Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, became eligible to be traded. The stock plunged as much as 50% in just the first 30 minutes of the trading session, triggering multiple trading halts during the course of the day. Let's move on to some more updates that came in on the healthcare front. Now, President Trump claimed that the prescription drug prices have significantly decreased, attributing this to the implementation of the favored nation status. Now, he described this as a revolutionary change in U.S. healthcare system. To more updates, meanwhile, President Trump also weighed in terms on the immigration front, expressing strong opposition to Somali immigrants, labeling some who enter the U.S. as garbage and critiquing Somalia's reliance on U.S. social safety nets while adding little to the country. To more updates and turning to some bit on the trade front, Trump revisited his tariff policies, targeting allied nations without naming specific countries, but notably refusing to mention Japan or South Korea. He reiterated that the tariff revenues would be redistributed to Americans as dividend checks, and even floated the idea of abolishing a federal income tax because of the tariff imposed and the revenue that they could get in over the next few years. Moving on to some more updates on what President Trump said, and he's added that the U.S. is no longer financially involved in Ukrainian conflict, criticizing current, Biden administration's financial support as excessive, which had happened in the past, describing it as handing out $350 billion like candy, mostly in cash and equipment. And in the final update that we have for you all today for the day, that is Russia and Ukraine peace deal talks. What's happening on that front? These talks were going on in Moscow, involving the US envoy Steve Witkoff, as well as the Russian President Vladimir Putin and Trump's advisor Jared Kushner, where they described it as constructive but incomplete. Russian advisor Yuri also said that no compromise were reached regarding Ukraine's territorial demands. Putin rejected Europe's peace deal demand and declared Europe should be ready for conflict if it chooses to engage. Now, that's all the update that we have for you all today. We'll get you all more in tomorrow's edition as well. But on that note, we're going to actually step into a very short break. On the other side, we're going to be focusing on commodities. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now let's move on. The telecom minister India defended the decision ordering smartphone makers to preload the state-owned Sanchar Sathi cybersecurity app. Union Minister of the State for Communication also says that there has been a working group formed to raise their concerns on this front as well. Listen in.
We requested all the original equipment manufacturers, and there has been a working group formed to raise their concerns. And Apple is the only company, as far as I know, did not participate in that working group. But all the rest of them have participated. They asked that whatever the clarifications, and DOT has given, and then the notice was given. But even now, this is just like any other Facebook app or Google Maps, that kind of app. If you don't want to use it, you can delete it, Unless you have a login and you really register and want to open, then only it will work. Otherwise, it would not have any access. It would not take any of your personal information, your contact information, your email, or anything whatsoever.
Okay, now let's get the updates coming in the world of commodity. As always, we have Manisha Gupta joining in with us this morning to talk to us about what we should be keeping an eye out on. Manisha, what's on your list? Gold, silver, crude? What are we keeping an eye out on today?
Well, thank you for that. I'll start with the crude oil prices because we've seen them slip slightly below $63 a barrel. One, the U.S. president held a meeting on Venezuela as tensions escalate there, so that's something that the markets will keep an eye on. The other is that the Ukraine has carried repeated strikes on Russia's energy facilities. So even as there is a conversation about a peace talk there, on ground, what is keeping the markets choppy there. What has seen gains in the overnight market has been metals as a sector. While we may have seen some profit taking in the base metal prices, but the ferrous metals, which have been underperforming this year, overnight have seen some gains come back. So you have the Chinese iron ore prices trading at a 1-month highs. The steel rebar is trading at a 3-month highs as well. This is after the Chinese government says that they will impose new measures to support property market. They may lower taxes on home buying, mortgage subsidies, etc. And that clearly seems to be supporting the ferrous metals in the morning today.
Okay, Manisha, thank you so much for that. We'll keep an eye out on crude as well as iron ore. But after weeks of turmoil over a US-backed peace plan, the high-stakes Kremlin meeting has now concluded. Russian President Vladimir Putin held nearly 5 hours of closed-door talks with US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and presidential advisor Jared Kushner. Washington is pushing to salvage a potential deal to end the almost 4-year war in Ukraine, and the completion of these talks marks one of the most significant US-Russia engagements since the conflict began. The meeting wraps up amid fresh warnings from Moscow to European nations, deepening concerns in Kyiv and across Europe about where negotiations are headed. Kremlin foreign policy aide Yuri briefed reporters after the talks, calling it a useful discussion, but acknowledging that they are no closer to resolving the crisis in Ukraine and that there is much work to be done. Okay, and with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Nifty implied indicating a muted start for the Indian market. Soon go anywhere. Up next, your Bazaar Morning Call.